Chapter 695. There are many dangers in the Scarlet Plain. Yu Fei snorted. The Scarlet Storm alone can take most people's lives, not to mention the other dangers. What dangers? Lin Xian asked. Blood wolves, terrifying blood bandits, and the mysterious Scarlet Netherland. Every one of them is extremely terrifying. If you encounter them, very few people can leave alive. Yu Fei glanced at Lin Xian and snorted. You're lucky that you didn't encounter the Scarlet Storm. Otherwise, you wouldn't even have the chance to stand here and talk. He didn't sense any terrifying aura from Lin Xian, so he thought that Lin Xian was just an ordinary martial artist. Lin Xian smiled and didn't point it out. He then took out the map, compared it to the map, and prepared to leave. Just then Yu Fei sneered. You're indeed a newbie. How ignorant of you to use such a map in the Scarlet Plain. Kid, I can guarantee that you won't survive more than 3 days with this map. Why? Lin Xian frowned. He didn't find anything wrong with the map. Your map looks detailed, but it only marks the geographical environment of the Scarlet Plain. There are no marks at all for the divisions of the forces and forbidden lands. This kind of thing is only used to trick newbies like you. No veteran would use it. Oh, Lin Xian frowned. What kind of map do you use? Kid, look carefully. This is my treasure. You can't see it even if you want to. Yu Fei said proudly. He then took out a scroll and opened it slowly. The map was huge. At first glance, it didn't seem as detailed as the one in Lin Xian's hand. However, if one looked closely, they would find that there were many marks on it. For example, Lin Xian found that the entire Scarlet Plain was divided into many regions of different sizes. Each region was marked with a different pattern. Other than that, there were some places with exclamation marks. These are? Lin Xian asked curiously. These are the divisions of the forces in the Scarlet Plain. The regions you see are the current divisions of the forces in the Scarlet Plain. Yu Fei said. Do you see that? The area we're standing in is the territory of the Azure Red Society. Azure Red Society? Yes, Broken Mountain City, Flying Tiger City, and 6 other cities all belong to the Green Red Society. Is the Qinghong Society very powerful? You can say that he's the overlord of this region, but he's nothing compared to the entire Blood Realm. Indeed, Lin Xian realized that the Green Red Society's sphere of influence was only the size of a fingernail on the entire map. Compared to those palm-sized and larger forces, it was nothing at all. Doesn't Broken Mountain City belong to the Green Wolf Gang? How did it become the Azure Red Society's territory? The Green Wolf Gang is just a branch of the Green Red Society, and it's the weakest of the 6 branches. You just arrived, so it's normal that you don't know about this. You'll probably understand after a while, Yu Fei said. Of course, the prerequisite is that you can survive in this Blood Realm. Green Wolf Gang, Green Red Society. Lin Xian looked at the map in his hand with a sinister look in his eyes. He didn't know if the other party had deliberately given him such a useless map, but he would let it go this time. If he found out that the Green Wolf Gang had other actions in the dark, he would never forgive them. Although the boss of the Green Red Society dominates here, he's nothing in the entire Blood Realm. He's not even qualified to enter the Blood Supreme list. Yu Fei snorted. Blood Supreme list, what's that? The Blood Supreme list is a ranking of the experts in the Blood Realm. Anyone who can be on the list is at least a venerable. Moreover, the venerables on the list have experienced hundreds of battles and rose in the cruelest environment. Their strength is much stronger than the venerables of the same level in other regions. The competition on the Blood Supreme list is very fierce. Chapter 697. Looking at Lin Xian's back, the captain's eyes turned cold. Go and report to the city lord that the person on the wanted list has appeared. The rest of you, close the city gates and activate the forbidden space array. Don't let that kid escape. Then the corners of his mouth turned cold. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. Since you're looking for death, don't blame us. Lin Xian walked into the Flying Tiger City. Looking at the lively scene on the street, he frowned slightly. His soul power was outstanding. Naturally, he could sense the abnormalities of the Flying Tiger Army. Especially the captain. Although he concealed it well, it did not escape Lin Xian's eyes. Lin Xian could see the shock and hidden killing intent in those people's eyes. Although he did not know what was going on, he was still vigilant. Yu Fei, who was at the front, had an excited face. From time to time, he would tell Lin Xian about the city. At this time, a loud noise came from behind. Then the whole ground trembled slightly. Countless black figures rushed out like a flood and instantly broke through the crowd. The martial artists on the street were shocked and quickly retreated. The flood was like a ferocious beast. It was very fast and instantly surrounded Lin Xian. Fuck, no way, Flying Tiger Army. Yu Fei saw these people and his face turned pale. He naturally knew how powerful these people were. These martial artists in black armor were the Flying Tiger Army. Wu was the city's law enforcer. They belonged to the city lord's mansion. No one dared to go against them in the city. Usually the Flying Tiger Army would not be mobilized. They would only be mobilized for special matters. But today they had surrounded Lin Xian. Brothers, are you looking for the wrong person? Yu Fei said in a trembling voice. We are two rookies. We can't cause any trouble, let alone alert you. Get lost. One of the martial artists in black armor kicked Yu Fei away. This has nothing to do with you. We are looking for him. Immediately, countless gazes were like cold spears as they stared at Lin Xian. Powerful auras gushed out from them. These auras formed a special field. This was the combined might and killing intent of the entire Flying Tiger troop. It was extremely shocking, and the surrounding cultivators retreated in fear. Yu Fei fell to the ground with a pained expression. He did not know what Lin Xian had done to provoke the Flying Tiger Army. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was very calm. He had a slight smile on his face, as if the invisible and terrifying pressure around him had no effect on him at all. What an ostentatious display. What's the matter? Lin Xian asked calmly. Cut the crap and come with us. The tone of these people was very harsh. Their bodies flickered with black light, and the long sabers in their hands were even brighter. This was not a conversation at all, but an order. What if I don't agree? Hearing the other party's forceful tone, Lin Xian's expression darkened. He wasn't someone that anyone could order around. Brat, I advise you to be sensible. Otherwise, we will chop off your limbs and drag you to the city lord's mansion like a dog. You don't have a choice. Be obedient and surrender. Perhaps you will suffer less. These people's voices were cold, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. Lin Xian frowned slightly, and a sword light flashed in his eyes. These people from the Flying Tiger troop dared to be disrespectful to him. If it was under normal circumstances, he would have killed them in an instant. However, this was the Flying Tiger City, and these people were the city lord's subordinates. Moreover, he did not know what had happened. Therefore, he did not want to have a conflict with the forces here, unless it was a last resort. Seeing that Lin Xian did not move, these people were very angry. Damn brat, you dare to disobey the city lord's order. Do you believe that I won't kill you now? Kill me? Lin Xian snorted coldly, and his face became cold. He took a step forward and said sternly, I'm standing right here. Try to move. Lin Xian's aura changed greatly as he took a step forward. A sharp and powerful aura gushed out, as if a peerless divine sword had been unsheathed. He had already condensed his martial soul, and dared to kill even a respected martial soul, let alone a few people from the Flying Tiger troop. This aura was not something that these people could contend with. Moreover, he did not make a move because he did not want to cause trouble. Now that the other party was so arrogant, did he really think that he was a pushover? This aura was very terrifying, like a demonic mountain, pressing down on everyone's hearts, making it difficult for them to breathe. Especially the Flying Tiger troop. When Lin Xian's gaze swept past them, they felt as if countless divine swords had pierced through their bodies. It was a trembling from the soul. The Flying Tiger troop, who were originally arrogant, was now trembling like little white rabbits. Their bodies trembled slightly, and they did not dare to look directly at Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled disdainfully, withdrew his aura, and stood with his hands behind his back. After a long time, the Flying Tiger troop came back to their senses. Thinking of their previous performance, they were so angry that their bodies trembled, and their eyes seemed to spit fire. In particular, The vice-domain chief was so angry that his face turned black. He had brought the army here to show off his strength and make the other party obediently give up. However, he did not expect that with so many people, they would be intimidated by the other party's gaze. Moreover, it happened in front of so many people. How were they going to survive in the future? Thinking of this, the vice-domain chief's face darkened, and his gaze was as cold as a poisonous snake's. He instantly drew the long saber from his waist and slashed at Lin Xian. "You ignorant dog, how dare you threaten us? Today I'll show you my power." The blade was sharp, and it was like a silver waterfall dancing in the air. The void split open, and the air was mercilessly torn apart, as if silver divine lightning was shining. The vice-domain chief was an ultimate powerhouse. His attack was filled with anger, and he did not hold back at all. This attack was so powerful that the surrounding martial artists exclaimed, especially Yu Fei, who covered his eyes and did not dare to look. At the same time, he felt endless sympathy and pity, because in his opinion, Lin Xian would definitely not be able to withstand this attack. Crack! Looking at the terrifying blade, Lin Xian smiled disdainfully, then he struck out with his palm. In an instant, the saber radiance in the air shattered and could not block it at all. Then, the shadow of the palm landed quickly, and a large handprint appeared on the vice-domain chief's face. Chapter 698. Looking at the vice-domain chief who was beaten up, Lin Xian said calmly, "I'm doing this for your own good. I'm teaching you not to be too arrogant. Not everyone can be offended in this world. Fortunately, I'm good-tempered and didn't stoop to your level. Otherwise, you would have been dead by now." The vice-domain chief was on the verge of tears. He even wanted to die. Who's the arrogant one? The surrounding people were even more stunned and shocked. The young man in front of them was definitely a fierce person. He had subdued the arrogant vice-domain chief with just a raise of his hand. Other than the governor and the vice-domain chief, no one else had this ability. Lin Xian glanced around and looked at the rest of the flying tiger troop. Immediately they retreated in fear. What a joke! Even the vice-domain chief was beaten up. Who would dare to go up? However, Lin Xian said, "Let's go. Take me to the governor's residence." What? Everyone was stunned and could not believe their ears. "You heard me right. I said I'm going to the governor's residence." Then Lin Xian turned to Yu Fei and said, "Take a rest first. I'll come and find you when I'm done." Yu Fei nodded mechanically. His eyes were blank. Until now, he still could not accept what was happening in front of him. Hero, please." The rest of the flying tiger troop carefully opened the way, afraid that they would offend Lin Xian. They were not arresting a criminal. They were simply guards opening the way for someone. However, they were not dissatisfied at all. They only wanted to reach the governor's residence as soon as possible, so that they could complete their mission. Lin Xian naturally had his reasons for going to the Chengdu residence. He did not know the people from the Flying Tiger Troop at all. There must be a reason why they wanted to kill him. Moreover, not long ago, he found out that the Green Wolf Gang and the Flying Tiger Troop were the two branches of the Green-Red Society. There must be a connection between the two. It seemed that the Flying Tiger Troop was standing up for the Green Wolf Gang this time. Moreover, Lin Xian knew that the governor of the Flying Tiger Troop was a First Heaven Venerable. Although he was powerful, he was confident that he could deal with him. Therefore, he went to the governor's residence fearlessly. Lin Xian walked at a leisurely pace, as if he was taking a stroll in the park. From time to time, he would look at the surrounding roadside scenery. The Flying Tiger Army stood on both sides of Lin Xian, as if they were his most loyal guards. The martial artists in the city were shocked, and they were all trying to guess which great figure actually needed the Flying Tiger Army to open a path for them. If they knew that those people were here to capture Lin Xian, their jaws would definitely drop. Finally, Lin Xian came to a stop in front of a huge mansion. The entire mansion was very majestic, like a small city. The tall walls were incomparably black. The gate was even more magnificent. In front of it were two stone carvings of flying tigers baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The group of people escorted Lin Xian into the city lord's mansion. On the other hand, the guards at the gate were puzzled. Didn't they say that they were going out to capture someone? Why were they escorting such a big shot back, and even accompanying him so carefully? Moreover, why was there a pig head in the team? No, that outfit, what? Vice Domain Chief? Everyone was shocked. They looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. Lin Xian did not go to the main hall. Instead, he was brought to a landscape garden. There were pavilions, terraces, and pavilions in picturesque disorder. There were rockery and flying rocks. It was a work of the gods. At this moment, the city lord and many of his subordinates were enjoying the dance and drinking when a guard suddenly reported. When he learned that the person on the wanted poster had been captured, his eyes instantly shot out a terrifying light. Bring that brat here. Soon Lin Xian strode over. Behind him was a group of Flying Tiger Army soldiers. Lin Xian swaggered around with a calm demeanor, as if he was the master of this place. When Lin Xian walked to the front, he saw the fine wine and delicacies nearby. He instantly laughed loudly and sat down to drink to his heart's content. Many martial artists in the courtyard had uncertain expressions, especially City Lord Tian Hu. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. This guy in front of them was too arrogant. He actually ignored all of them and ate and drank to his heart's content. Did he not know that he was a prisoner? How dare you? Arrogant. Why aren't you kneeling when you see the city lord? A young man shouted coldly. He was also wearing light armor, and his expression was cold. This young man was the son of the Flying Tiger Army's lieutenant. When he saw Lin Xian's arrogant attitude, he was instantly enraged. Lin Xian held the wine cup in his left hand and laughed loudly. You're the bold one. How dare you speak like that? Why aren't you slapping yourself? His voice was filled with arrogance and unruliness. You're courting death. The young man was enraged. He immediately pulled out a sharp longsword and stabbed out quickly. No one stopped him. Everyone looked at this scene with gloomy expressions. This young man looked young, but his cultivation was at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. His sword's momentum was shocking. The sword light was like a dazzling divine light that swept through the void. Red flames were attached to the sword chi. They were dancing, accompanied by a blazing aura. It was as if a ferocious fire dragon was spewing out. In an instant, the terrifying sword light enveloped Lin Xian. Die, brat! The young man's face was ferocious like a demon. However, in the next moment, a vigorous hand reached out and grabbed the head of the fire dragon. His 5 fingers bent and pierced through the head. With a mournful cry, the fire dragon disappeared, turning into a rain of fire that fell to the ground. Lin Xian snorted disdainfully. His gaze was like a sword that pierced forward. The young man's face turned pale. He took 3 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. You don't know how to use a sword, and you're not worthy of using one, Lin Xian said mercilessly. The young man clutched his chest. His eyes were spitting fire. He wanted nothing more than to burn Lin Xian to death. He was considered an elite of the younger generation in the Flying Tiger Army. His status was respected, and no one dared to speak to him like that. Now an unknown brat dared to taunt him in public. This put him on the spot. His heart was burning with anger. He wanted nothing more than to pounce forward and cut Lin Xian down. However, the terrifying scene from before left him with lingering fear. He didn't dare to move recklessly. He did not expect his opponent to be so powerful that he could shatter his attack with a single punch. Looking at the rapidly descending golden palm in the void, he let out a low growl and quickly unleashed the power of his martial soul prototype. An extremely powerful force surged out and filled the surroundings. At this moment, Wang Yu's body was shining brightly. Terrifying energy filled his body, and he could even tear the void apart with a single move. He waved both of his palms and struck out an energy palm shadow. It swept across the sky and resisted the golden palm above. However, the golden palm in the sky was too terrifying. It directly shattered the palm shadow that filled the sky and quickly enveloped Wang Yu. Boom! Wang Yu was sent flying and kept retreating. Every step he took left a terrifying crack in the ground. The ground of the entire feng shui garden was torn apart, as if an earthquake had occurred. Wang Yu's hair was disheveled, his chest was heaving up and down, and the corners of his mouth were stained with blood. This palm had seriously injured him. On the opposite side, Lin Xian looked calm. He did not even move his feet. You have the nerve to draw your saber with your little strength? You even said that you would kill me. Can you do it? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. Wang Yu was about to go crazy. He was like a wild beast roaring continuously. A terrifying aura floated around his body like a burning flame. The spiritual energy in the sky gathered and formed an energy giant that was dozens of feet tall. Its hands were on the ground as it roared at the sky. Its voice was like a wave that slapped in all directions and shattered the clouds in the sky. The giant glared at Lin Xian, and then spat out an energy beam. Airwaves rolled and the void shattered. The terrifying energy beam was like a demon spear that quickly rushed toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian sneered with disdain in his eyes. Then, he took a step forward, and the spiritual energy in his body condensed into a terrifying sword qi that quickly slashed forward. The sword qi was dazzling and directly bombarded the energy beam, shattering it. Then, the terrifying sword qi slashed the energy giant in half. Finally, the dazzling sword qi enveloped Wang Yu. Everything happened too quickly. All they saw was Lin Xian taking a step forward. Then, a huge and resplendent sword beam appeared in the sky. Wherever it passed, everything was annihilated. Nothing could stop it for even a moment. When the sword qi disappeared, everyone was shocked and gasped. That was because Wang Yu's body was cut in half and fell to the ground. His blood and organs were splattered all over the ground. It was a hideous sight. It was too terrifying. The dignified domain chief of Flying Tiger City, a half-step supremacy, was killed with a single slash. Moreover, he could not even fight back. This kind of strength was heaven-defying, and the opponent was such a young man. Countless people trembled and did not dare to look at Lin Xian directly. Why did he think he was smart enough to send Manager Dust's body away? If he had held back at that time, this would not have happened. Let you go. Lin Xian sneered. Stop dreaming. I'm here today to deal with you. The Green Wolf Gang has no need to exist. What? Zhao Kuan trembled. Lin Xian's words were tantamount to announcing his death sentence. He gasped for breath, and a hint of madness appeared in his eyes. Then he grabbed the old man next to him. Manager Li, it's time for you to contribute to the gang. After saying that, he waved his arm and threw the old man toward Lin Xian. At the same time, he used his speed and ran outside. Men, come quickly. Zhao Kuan roared like a madman. He knew that no one in Broken Mountain City was a match for Lin Xian. He only did that to buy some time for his subordinates. Humph. Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. He smashed the old man flying toward him with a punch, then pointed his finger at him. Whoosh! His finger shone like a small sword. It streaked across the void and stabbed Zhao Kuan in an instant. Come! Zhao Kuan had just run into the main hall when his body froze. He slowly lowered his head and realized that his heart was transparent. Boom! His body fell down, and he couldn't be any more dead. Ah! Gang leader! The gang members who came from all directions screamed when they saw this scene. At this moment, Lin Xian walked out slowly in a black robe. He exuded a terrifying aura. Devil! Devil! The surrounding martial artists saw this and ran away frantically. Lin Xian flew into the sky and stood in the void. Then he slammed his palm down. Boom! A golden palm condensed and fell rapidly like a mountain. Following it were countless bolts of lightning. In an instant, the main hall of the Green Wolf Gang was reduced to dust. A terrifying handprint appeared on the ground. Countless bolts of golden lightning struck in all directions. It was a terrifying sight. The headquarters of the Green Wolf Gang was reduced to ashes. After doing all this, Lin Xian turned and left. Not long after, a martial artist in a green robe appeared in the void. There was a red flower petal drawn on his chest. He looked at the destroyed main hall below with a cold glint in his eyes. "I'm a step too late," the mysterious man said softly. Then he snorted coldly, and a powerful murderous aura flashed across his body. "How dare you offend the Green-Red Gang? Even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I'll kill you." The middle-aged martial artist in a green robe transformed into a fighter and grabbed at the void. Then his eyes flickered with a hint of ferocity. "Kid, you can't run away." Whoosh! He turned into a ray of green light and disappeared. In the Flying Tiger City, there was also a martial artist in a green robe. This martial artist was slightly older, but he had the same arrogance as the previous one. It seemed that he was also a member of the Green-Red Gang. The old man in a green robe sat in the middle of the main hall. In just a short while, he had already seen a few martial artists who weren't weaker than him. Their auras were abnormally strong, and there were even faint traces of martial spirits. As expected of the Immortal Martial Academy, it actually attracted so many young experts. Lin Xian was excited. Competing with geniuses was the greatest joy. "Sorry, it's full." "It's full." After asking a few ins, they were all told that they were all full. There were no extra rooms. Not only Lin Xian, the other martial artists who came later also didn't have a place to stay. "I've heard of a place where there should be a place to stay." Yu Fei thought for a long time and said slowly. "However, it seems that it's not easy to stay in a room there." "Not easy?" Lin Xian was puzzled. "Elder brother Xian, you'll know when you get there." Very quickly, Lin Xian arrived at the place mentioned by Yu Fei. Wind Sweeping Inn wasn't just a building, it was a huge and luxurious inn. From ordinary rooms to exquisite courtyards, it had everything. At this moment, Wind Sweeping Inn was surrounded by countless martial artists. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian sighed. With so many people, even if there were empty rooms in the past, there were probably none left now. Looking at the crowded and noisy scene, Lin Xian felt that it was somewhat funny. It was hard for him to imagine that so many young geniuses would actually quarrel over a room. Bang! A low voice interrupted Lin Xian's fantasy. He raised his head and saw the crowd in front of Wind Sweeping and parting. Several figures were sent flying out and fell to the ground. "Are you deaf? If I said there's no room, there's no room. You still dare to be angry with me?" The young and beautiful lady boss walked out with her hands on her waist. She was as arrogant as a princess. You dare to hit us?" The few young men crawled up from the ground, their faces filled with indignation. It was too embarrassing. To think that as geniuses, they couldn't even rent a room, and were even thrown out. Moreover, there were so many people watching. How were they going to survive in the future? The few young men were so angry that their faces turned pale. They wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Among them, one of the young men stared at the young lady boss as killing intent surged from his body. "Oh, you still dare to hit us?" The young lady boss sneered. "Why don't you try?" After saying that, she took out a signboard. "Open your dog eyes and look carefully. This is the Immortal Martial Academy's examination room. If you dare to cause trouble here, you can forget about entering the Immortal Martial Academy for the rest of your life." Hearing this, the young man's body trembled. He retracted his aura and turned to leave with a face covered in dirt. A piece of trash dares to behave atrociously here." The young lady boss clapped her hands and turned to leave. At this moment, a voice rang out. "Lady boss room." Junior Lin Xian greets seniors. Lin Xian stood up and left the square as he said respectfully. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. The official disciples widened their eyes. It was the first time they had seen the elders so enthusiastic. Many people even suspected that they had been affected by the illusion. Yin Qingyang snorted. As a supreme talent, he didn't receive such treatment. How could a young man who had not even entered the sect receive such treatment? Therefore, he looked at Lin Xian with a hint of hostility. As time passed, more and more people were sent out. These people were pale and looked weak. They were in a bad state. Gradually, the number of people in the square decreased. In the end, only a few figures were left. Chapter 710. Only a few figures were left in the square. Those people were Morong Qingqing, Shaoli, and the others. In addition, Lan Bai and a few other experts were also persevering. However, the power of the illusion became stronger as they progressed. Even if those people were geniuses, they could not withstand it. Therefore, people were constantly being teleported out, and there were fewer and fewer people in the square. In the end, only Morong Qingqing, Shaoli, Lan Bai, and Xin Yaotian were left. I'm sure that Morong Qingqing will still be first in the second round. Of course. Even a fool can see that. She's indeed a genius. Not only is she beautiful, but her strength is also unparalleled. Whoever marries such a woman will definitely be blessed for 10 lifetimes. Everyone was discussing with envy in their eyes. Soon, Lan Bai opened her eyes and sighed as she was teleported out. Not long after, Xin Yaotian was also teleported out. There were only 2 people left in the square. Xin Yaotian realized that Lin Xian had already been teleported out. Then, a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Trash. Not only do you have no bloodline power, but your willpower is also trash. So what if you're in the lead for a while? The path of martial arts is a test of comprehensive strength. It'll let you know who the real genius is. Xin Yaotian was extremely heroic. He could not wait to fight Lin Xian and trample him under his feet. In his opinion, Lin Xian must not have passed through the illusion and was teleported out in advance. Lin Xian ignored Xin Yaotian. Instead, he stared at the 2 figures in the square. Shaoli was a swordsman. He possessed saber intent and had even condensed a saber soul. His willpower was extremely strong and was much stronger than ordinary martial artists. Lin Xian knew that. Therefore, he speculated that Shaoli would definitely be able to persevere until the end. However, Morong Qingqing's performance was beyond his expectations. Lin Xian had always been unable to see through this famous genius. He did not know what her martial soul was, and he did not even know what her cultivation level was. However, he was sure that Chen Shi had definitely entered the Exalt realm a long time ago. Moreover, it would seem like Chen Zai's natural talent and will were top-rate existences. As expected of the blessed daughter of the heavens, she is indeed valiant. On the square, several elders looked at the beautiful figure and nodded in satisfaction. Time passed slowly as everyone waited anxiously. They had never thought that there would be someone who could compete with Morong Qingqing. Suddenly, Shaoli furrowed his brows. His body glowed with white light as he was teleported out. It's out. Looks like the outcome has been decided. Morong Qingqing wins. Morong Qingqing's supporters cheered. Not long after, Morong Qingqing was also teleported out. Her forehead was covered with a layer of sparkling and translucent sweat. It seemed that persevering until now was also very difficult for her. Alright, the second stage is over. Those who have persisted for more than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn have passed the test. Quite a few people sighed and hung their heads in dejection. It was because the second round had eliminated close to half of the people, and those who passed were nervously calculating their rankings. Xin Yaoshan's lips curled up in satisfaction, because he discovered that he was ranked 3rd. If he could reach the top 3 in the combat test, then his overall ranking would be in the top 3. At that time, after entering the academy, he would receive a reward for being in the top 3. The rewards of the Immortal Martial Academy were extremely generous. We will now announce the rankings, the red-robed elder said in a clear voice. The first place of the second stage is Lin Xian. What? Lin Xian? Everyone was stunned, especially those who were teleported out after Lin Xian. All of them had astonished expressions on their faces, as if they had heard wrongly. From their perspective, the first place would definitely be Morong Qingqing, because she was the one who had persisted until the end. Even Morong Qingqing herself was astonished. Her beautiful eyes stared at Lin Xian, filled with curiosity and astonishment. Xiao Li Lan Bai, and the other geniuses were also puzzled. This is impossible. Wasn't that brat teleported out very early on? Elder, did you guys make a mistake? Shen Yaotian cried out loudly. He didn't want Lin Xian to take advantage of a loophole and gain a huge advantage. There were also many cultivators who were doubtful. However, some other cultivators were silent because they knew why Lin Xian was judged to be first. Even the official disciples had strange expressions on their faces as they remained silent. Those cultivators who were clamoring about the unfairness seemed to have noticed the situation and quickly asked about it. After knowing the situation, they were all shocked. Gradually, the quarreling in the square became softer. Shen Yaotian was still shouting loudly. I don't understand. Elder, please enlighten me. He wouldn't let Lin Xian get first place. Stop quarreling. The red-robed elder pressed down with both hands, emitting a powerful aura. Instantly, the entire square quietened down. Look at Lin Xian's profound jade platform, and you will understand. Hearing this, everyone looked over and exclaimed. Shen Yaoshan's body also stiffened, stunned. The profound jade platform shattered? How is that possible? He naturally knew the function of the profound jade platform. It was absolutely impossible to break that thing. At least with their current strength and cultivation, it was impossible to do so. However, the profound jade platform that Lin Xian was sitting on had actually shattered into two. This was too shocking. For a moment, Shen Yaoshan's mind went blank. He was stunned on the spot. Morong Qingcheng, Xiao Li and the others also gasped. They had just experienced the illusion, so they naturally knew how dangerous it was. Lin Xian was actually able to break the profound jade platform. Didn't this mean that the illusion had no effect on him at all? If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. After our analysis, we have decided that the first place is Lin Xian, the red-robed elder said. Anyone who is interested can say it. Everyone was silent. No one spoke. What a joke. Lin Xian had even shattered the profound jade platform. Who would dare to object? Shen Yaotian had also recovered from his shock. However, his expression was extremely ugly. Not long ago, he was still feeling smug, thinking that Lin Xian's willpower was not enough, and that he would be eliminated early. Who knew that he would not be affected at all? Not only did he obtain a piece of land, but he even broke the profound jade platform. Chapter 7:11. The red-robed old man quickly announced the rankings. Lin Xian, Morong Qingcheng, Xiao Li and Shen Yaotian. Lan Bai took up the top 5 spots. Over 500 people participated in the second round, but only over 200 successfully passed. The elimination rate was terrifying. I'll give you all an hour to rest and recuperate. After an hour, we'll begin the third round. Those who passed the first round sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. Although there was no battle in the second round, the experience in the illusionary realm caused their soul and mind to be greatly exhausted. That process was 10 times more tiring than a battle. Hence, everyone made use of the time to recuperate so that they could deal with the third round. These people were all geniuses and had all sorts of miraculous pills on them. Hence, an hour was more than enough for them to recuperate. Very quickly, these people opened their eyes. Their eyes glowed with excitement as they looked forward to the third round. As long as they passed the third round, they would be able to enter the Immortal Martial Academy. Once they entered the Immortal Martial Academy, their future would be limitless. An hour has passed. Let's begin the third round. The red-robed old man waved his sleeves, and a palm-sized exquisite pagoda flew out. It spun in the air and gradually enlarged. Finally, it landed on the square with a loud boom. The pagoda was divided into 7 levels. It was covered with golden spikes and shone with a brilliant light. This is the Tower of Trials. It is divided into 7 levels. Those who pass the first 3 levels are qualified. Now, let the third round begin. As the red-robed old man's voice faded, the Tower of Trials emitted a dazzling light. On the first level, 4 doors opened at the same time. The cultivators who had successfully passed the second stage immediately dashed forward. Following which, over 200 people entered the Tower of Trials. The third round was a real battle. Of course, it wasn't a real battle between the examinees and real cultivators. Instead, it was a battle using illusionary treasures. Don't underestimate this kind of battle, because it was more dangerous than a real battle. The opponents inside were formed according to the characteristics of the cultivators. The Tower of Trials had a total of 7 levels. Passing the first 3 levels was considered a success. Over 200 disciples entered the Tower of Trials, following which, the doors on the first level closed. The Tower of Trials was like a small golden mountain, standing in the middle of the square. Soon, everyone realized that the trial tower was different, because the first floor showed 234 dots of light. They represented the 234 people who had just entered. Lin Xian followed everyone into the Tower of Trials, and appeared in an independent space. In the boundless scarlet plains, the sky was somewhat gloomy, and the wind was howling all around. If Lin Xian did not have a strong will, he would have thought that he had arrived at the scarlet plains. However, he knew that this was all an illusion. Then, he was surprised again because he found that the wind shadow sword on his waist was gone. And so was the high-grade spiritual grade inner armor on his body. What replaced it was an ordinary black armor, and a black iron longsword. It seemed like he couldn't use his own treasures, and could only use the weapons and armors provided by this space. Lin Xian seemed to understand the rules here. He gave it a try and found that he could use his spiritual energy to form a red lotus armor. In other words, his strength was not affected. However, he quickly removed the red lotus armor. According to his speculation, if he died here, it only meant that he had failed the test. He would not really die. The third level was also filled with black-clothed martial artists, but their cultivation had changed to the first level of the Venerable Realm. Venerable Realm was already an expert of a region. This was also the reason why the Immortal Martial Academy stipulated that as long as one passed the third level, one would be considered to have completed the trial. Those who defeated Venerables were qualified to enter the Immortal Martial Academy. However, it was not easy to kill a Venerable Realm expert. Most people would find it difficult to do so. Of course, Lin Xian was an exception. He had killed more than one Venerable Realm expert. Therefore, he passed the third level easily. In the outside world, everyone exclaimed, because they realized that a few light spots had arrived at the fourth level very quickly. At this moment, most people were still struggling on the second level. They passed the third level so quickly. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. The more he fought, the braver he became. In the end, he directly engaged in close combat. The iron sword was like a black angry dragon. It roared ferociously as the dragon sword soul was activated to the extreme. Poof! Finally, he found an opportunity to stab the Spear Supreme expert with the sword. The illusion was very realistic. Blood splattered everywhere as the sword slashed down. Woo woo! After succeeding with one strike, Lin Xian stepped up his attack. The black iron sword turned into a poisonous dragon and chased after the supreme expert. 13 styles of gale. Sword chi surged like a storm and quickly pierced towards the Spear Supreme expert. The void was pierced, and the terrifying sword gleam was unstoppable. Lin Xian's goal was simple. He wanted to kill one of them first before dealing with the other. Roar! The Spear Supreme expert was furious. A demonic peacock condensed on the tip of his spear. It was becoming more and more realistic. Poof! As the spear pierced out, the giant peacock attacked as well, making the power of the spear extremely terrifying. The 5-colored spear gleam created a demonic shadow in the air. It was like a surging divine light that rushed towards Lin Xian. Clang! 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 Lin Xian swung his iron sword, forming a half-moon sword veil around his body. It was as if the moonlight scattered in front of him to protect him. The 5-colored spear gleam was blocked, but the other supreme expert behind him suddenly attacked. His palms were suffused with golden light. Lin Xian tried his best to dodge, but he was still swept in the shoulder. His body immediately smashed into the ground like a meteor. Boom! The ground trembled, and a terrifying deep pit appeared. Whoosh! In the next moment, Lin Xian soared into the sky. His body was covered by a sword veil as he charged again. Although he was injured, he could not rest in this situation. He had to solve it as soon as possible. The dragon sword soul roared, and the entire sky trembled. At this moment Lin Xian's combat power was raised to the extreme. His entire body was like a divine sword. He stood in the void, and his body was emitting a dazzling light that lit up the dark sky. Lin Xian took a step forward, and arrived in front of the Sanguine Palm Venerable in an instant. He swung his iron sword quickly. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. In an instant, it cut the Sanguine Palm Venerable's shoulder, revealing his terrifying white bones. Vermilion Bird Seal. At the same time, he formed a seal with his left palm, and hit the Sanguine Palm Venerable's hand, sending him flying. The iron sword fell again like a black lightning bolt, and cut the Sanguine Palm Venerable apart. The first supreme expert was destroyed. Roar! The long spear Venerable roared, and charged again with his spear. Squall style. Lin Xian raised his iron sword in the air, and made a killing move.